There's much more to enjoy in Dayton, of course. The Old Town area is another step back in time with some buildings dating back to the very early days. Dayton also has its very own state park, open year-round.
The drive to Genoa is less than an hour, about 25 miles or so, and takes us into the Carson Valley as the shadows begin to stretch across. Tomorrow should be a beautiful day.
Genoa has its own state park, Mormon Station, and we begin our day there. We are greeted by Ranger Rob Reef.
Welcome to Mormon Station State Historic Park.
Thanks for having us.
Really nice grassy, lush park.
Say it's beautiful
Kind of
location.
work like a city park, but we also work as a piece of very valuable Nevada history.
You know, part of what is great about this park's location, though, is you're right in the middle of town. I mean, you've got the major intersection, you got all the traffic. You see this park when you come through Genoa.
And honestly, that's partially a result of the fact that this was the first structure that made the town happen. The 1851 log cabin that was actually built by John Reese with the help of Abner Blackburn. He had gone to California, he came back over the mountains, saw this as the perfect trading post site, and told John Reese, hey, I've got this perfect place for a trading post. And this is it. This is our 1947 replica, mind you, but it is to scale, and it is built at the exact same spot that John Reese built this building. Before this, there had been trading posts that were built out of tents. They were built with maybe 4 walls and a canvas top, but they were just meant for the season.
So now why is this a replica?
Well, because unfortunately in 1910, there was a fire. So the original building was just rubble. This is where I need to warn you, it is built to scale. So yes, duck your head throughout the entire museum, unfortunately.
I was gonna say, I think I'm clear, but just barely.
Just barely.
Just barely, yeah.
I can get a little noggin knock there.
So what I was talking about, the original cabin burning down in 1910, unfortunately this is the one remnant we have of the original 1851 cabin. You can tell the fire was pretty substantial.
I was going to say, that is really cool that you at least still have a little bit of the
old cabin. At least a piece of it. It is the first permanent non-native structure that was built in the state of Nevada, after all. And this is a picture that comes to us from roughly the 1880s period.
Okay.
And you can see it actually changed a little bit. It had a facade added to it by then.
It almost looks like a storefront.
It is. I mean, if you can imagine, when this first opened up as a trading post, prior to its opening, they were charging $2.50 for 1 pound of flour. Now, in today's money, that's $70 to $80.
That's crazy.
If you wanted just a drink of whiskey, that's 50 cents. That's about 20 bucks for just a single drink.
So you have a lot of artifacts in here. Are these all from the area and all period pieces?
Yes, I mean, some of them have been donated. And we'll point out some of the stuff that's just laying here is actually stuff that's been dug up on site. Say, for instance, every time we have a water leak, they dig up something new and find out something that's either from the 1920s or maybe even the 19th century, just in the dirt. And this is what would actually be an oxen shoe, not a horseshoe. And you can tell because they're actually in 2 pieces because oxes have cloven hooves. And once again, in the California Trail, you know, if you have 2,000 pounds that you're hauling in your family's wagon, you want an oxen, not a horse. We actually put our museum in chronological order. So we like to start off with the people who were here first, obviously the Washoe tribe, who really made this area their winter home. So they like to spend their summers in Lake Tahoe. You can imagine it's obviously a better place to spend the winter down here.
Yeah.
When you were walking up to the park, you might have noticed a statue of a Norwegian on skis with a balancing pole.
Yes.
Snowshoe Thompson. Very interesting story. This is actually a pair of, one of his many pairs of wooden skis that we found from his personal home. And this is an example of his balancing pole. And some people call him the father of Sierra skiing because he probably was the first guy to actually ski in the Sierras. But what he did with them is amazing, because from 1856 to 1876, he actually delivered the mail from Placerville to Genoa over and over and over again. Summer, fall, spring, and yes, winter. Having the mail come from California is absolutely critical. What do you do if you want a piece of lace bought in San Francisco? Well, Snowshoe Thompson's going to deliver it to you. That's the only connection we have for mail for almost 20 years.
The museum boasts a lot of variety for a small building. The park asks for a $1 donation to visit the museum, but you definitely get a bang for that buck. Next up, the stockade.
I do want to point out that it's a little bit different than history. First of all, the height. You might notice maybe 7 feet or so here.
Okay.
The original height was somewhere between 12 and 14 feet.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking about a very, very tall structure.
So where they had short doors, they had very high walls.
Very high walls.
Why did they need to be so high?
Well, you got to defend your livestock.
Okay,
imagine.
that's true. We don't have a lot of that
And
happening
that's
here today.
the other thing, this nice, grassy, beautiful park, the wildflowers we've got showing off here beautifully today. We do this for the public today.
Okay.
Make a nice, beautiful place. In fact, sometimes we hold weddings here. In fact, we have a wedding this weekend.
I can see why.
That'll take place here. But in history, this would have been a very dusty place. It would have smelled like livestock, obviously. Very different than the wildflower smell we're experiencing right now.
Back in those dusty days, this was also a wagon repair shop, and Rob introduces us to a couple of vintage customers.
First of all, we'll visit the prairie schooner, which actually would be the most common form of wagon that settlers were using on the California Trail. And I like to kind of compare it to your old station wagon or maybe your lighter crossover SUV that still has good fuel economy.
Okay.
It's lightweight. That being said, they still weigh on an average about 1,300 pounds and would stuff up to 2,000 pounds worth of their home goods in the wagon and haul as much as they could with the thing. Next to that is actually your California rack bed freight wagon, which we like to compare to the semi-truck of the day.
Okay.
That can haul a lot of cargo. That can haul more than twice that weight of the prairie schooner.
So what are the plans for the park?
What's hoped for in the near term is to get our 1908 era blacksmith shop running. Early on, state parks actually just thought this was a 1940s era barn. We're very fortunate to still have this building in existence due to really mistaken identity. It was obviously not a barn once we started uncovering things more and more. I'll point out to something that's just behind you, for instance. These horizontal stripes kind of show you that this wood was actually from an older structure. This is basically leftover marks from plaster. They're called lathe and plaster markings.
Okay.
And so this is something that was obviously taken from an old building. And if you do further investigation into some of the pieces of wood, you'll even find that some of the nails are square nails.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So what happened is they actually took the wood from an older building and then made this blacksmith shop out of it in 1908. You see the massive amount of tools all over the walls have been donated by a lot of the local ranches. So really even just a couple of years ago, this was still a pretty plain looking building. We actually just this last month, in fact, got a list of things we need to do to this to make it fire worthy.
Oh, wow.
So that we can actually stoke that forge back up. But hopefully within the next few months, we'll actually see a blacksmith working in this shop.
That's exciting.
And be able to give you a living history demonstration.
really cool.
Fun. Are you going to learn how to be a blacksmith?
I sure am, yeah.
You know, we tried it once. We took a class, and we were not very good.
It's much harder than it appears.
I just want to learn a little bit of everything that I can. Someday I could learn how to make an actual functioning tool. Any tool. I don't care what that tool is. Just an actual functioning tool, because I think that's always amazing when people would actually make their handmade tools and not have to order it out of the Sears catalog.
I mean, a blacksmith shop was your catalog, right?
Right. I mean, sometimes you needed a tool for a very specific job, and you didn't have a hardware store that covered everything in a small town like Genoa. So you'd make your tool on site. If you had a blacksmith shop, why not?
Yeah. Rob, I look forward to coming back one day to watch you make whatever tool you decide you want to make. Thanks for sharing all of this with us. It's been incredible.
Oh, no,
So
thank
much
you.
fun.
Thank you for coming to Mormon Station today.